6. Welcome, everyone. We have a tight agenda, so I'm not going to hold up too much time. Ms. Tanner, could you please call the roll?
Basine?
Here.
Clanton?
Present.
Gabriel?
Present.
Jordan?
Here.
Martin?
Present.
Here, we're going to move on to 2.01, Dr. Birdsong.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Buffalo, Vice Chair Dr. Gabriel, members of the board, administration, members of our community. Our first presentation entails an update related to the number of accredited schools as a school board goal. And so Dr. Pohl is prepared to share a recommendation on behalf of the administration.
Thank you, Dr. Birdsong. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Ms. Buffalo, Vice Chair Dr. Gabriel, members of the board. This afternoon, I'll present a proposed Goal 1 and measures for discussion. Let me just,
Here. Oh, here, I'll get it for you.
I've got it, Ms.
Oh,
Taylor.
you got it? Okay.
Yeah, thank you. With the change to the accountability system of Virginia, there will no longer be accreditation statuses as the previous Goal 1 was measuring. Instead, there will be 4 categories or score bands schools will be placed based on several factors as presented by Ms. McGarity previously during the October board work session. As a reminder, the 4 score bands are distinguished 90-plus points, on track 80 to 89 points, off track 65 to 79 points, and needs intensive support for below 65 points. Therefore, the administration is recommending the goal to change to the following. Some percentage of schools will be at the distinguished or on-track levels by the 27-28 accountability year, test administration year of 26-27. The 24-25 data year, 25-26 accountability year, will create a new baseline for data as the new accountability system is implemented. With there being no crosswalk year to gain a better understanding of the new system, all schools and divisions will be rated on the new accountability system using this year's data for the first time. As of October 31st, yes, last week, October 31st, there were still updates on how to use this year or last year's data to create estimates of how Norfolk schools would have performed on the new system. Currently, the best estimates are that no schools would be distinguished. 15 schools or 37.5% of our schools would be on track, and 24 or 60% would be off track, and 1 or 2.5% would be needs intensive support. This makes an estimated baseline for a starting point for the goal of 37.5% based on what we know at this moment from the VDOE. Again, these are not final numbers from the VDOE. There are best estimate calculations from all the data and information shared by the VDOE. As we have other goals and measures, the administration recommends not setting a final target for this goal until we have baseline data for the first year of implementation, as we have in the past with goals and measures. Additionally, the highest percentage of schools accredited over the past decade has been 67.4%, which would make a goal of 100% on what is more rigorous accountability process and unrealistic goal to meet in just 2 years. As we continue to measure this work, the administration believes continuing with the chronic absenteeism and dropout measures are vital to this work. With graduation rates now counting for 20% of each high school's index score, attendance and dropout rates are crucial to improve. Additionally, both elementary and middle levels have direct points related to chronic absenteeism with their final index score. Since there are academic indicators for reading and mathematics and other goals, dropout and chronic absenteeism are the key indicators that must also be tracked within these board goals. I now pause for discussion or questions.
Board members, you've heard the presentation by Dr. Pohl. Do you have any questions? Mr. Jordan?
Thank you for the consideration. Just for the sake of discussion with my board colleagues, so I can make sure we're all on the same page. So, I've always had some reticence about this goal, largely because we said we were going to be student outcome focused, and I don't think that school accreditation of itself is a student outcome focused goal. But within being accredited are obviously student outcome measures. So I guess the first thing I just like if you can reset for me so I can have this conversation. Inside of the current accreditation system that we've been working on, can you just remind us again what the major buckets are that determine accreditation as it exists today,
So
or as it was existed when we had on the previous goal?
I understand. So, as you know, it was the three areas where we could fall were accredited, accredited with conditions, or accreditation denied. And the areas of data that where it fell, where I think you're really looking for, Dr. or Mr. Jordan, are math, SOL scores that included growth points, reading SOL scores that included growth points, and then you had math and reading gap scores as well, is what they call them, but we refer to them as subgroups, that all, had to reach certain growth areas or certain benchmark scores. So the reading was 75%, math was 70%. Then science, it was just the science. There were no growth and no gap groups, but science had to reach the benchmark of 70% or show growth over time. Then there was chronic absenteeism. And then for high schools, you also add dropout rate and CCCRI, which is also no longer. Ms. McGarry, did I hit them all?
Very good. So I have two recommendations based upon that for the board to consider. One would be not doing this recommendation, but continuing with the, oh, it sounds so loud. Continuing with the board measuring these same components that Dr. Pohl mentioned. Let's just call it the NPS accreditation standard. With the data that we can continue to measure. I know you mentioned, like, for example, the high school CCRI is no longer required, but if locally we can still continue to measure that, then the math SOL, the growth, the reading SOL, the growth, the gaps, the science, the chronic absenteeism, the high school measures, all of those indicators that have been driving the percentage of schools that meet that we just continue to do that and not call it state accreditation, but just call it NPS board accreditation and continue on the path towards the goal that we have. That way we would not have to reset for 25, 26. We can continue to have like data from where we've been tracking since 2019 and just continue down that path with that data for our own version of accreditation. So that would be one recommendation for the board to consider. And the second recommendation would be to just delete the goal and have 4 goals. So I offer that for thought and consideration.
Thank you. Ms. Basine?
First, thank you for the presentation, and I appreciate the response to the question I had submitted prior to this meeting to get an understanding of where we are today, and you just shared that information with us using the new accreditation system. So that gives me a sense of where we are now to know where we might be going in the future. And so I'm of the mind of having, I too, in the same camp of, we agreed to go with this goal, but I also, because it's not a student outcomes focused goal, had hesitation about this particular goal. So I'm honestly leaning toward the recommendation of deleting this goal. And because I think having the one thing that is common over time are the pass rates. So those things will remain the same, correct?
Correct.
Right, and that is what will drive the point system in the new accountability system.
And just if I may.
Yeah.
The only difference is, with new standards and everything else, things will change, but pass rate is still pass rate.
But pass
Correct.
rate is still pass rate.
Correct.
And the way that it's calculated is still the same, right? Or is it?
For pass rate,
For
correct.
pass rates,
Correct.
right.
Cut scores and everything else changes at the
That-
state level, but pass rate is pass rate.
Right. So I think given the goals, the other goals that we do have, I think that we need to get in a groove with this new accountability system and have that walkthrough period, and then also have continued discussion among the board about our board goals, and our monitoring of them, and perhaps, and then doing a deep dive into looking our need, doing a deep needs assessment of where we are with that new accountability system, and then reexamining all of our goals at some point, down the road. Because right now, we're already, I feel like, in the middle of this cycle that we're in. And so I hesitate changing this goal. And I also, I appreciate the recommendation Mr. Jordan put up. And I would agree with that we either keep it the way it is or delete it. But my preference is, for consideration, is to just delete it. Because I think if we focus on the other 4 goals, I think, and allow us to work through this accountability system, we will have a better sense of what our student outcomes focused goal may be around this.
Any
Yeah.
comments, questions? Ms.
Yeah.
Kim?
I mean, I'm listening to both of my colleagues in regards to what you're offering as an alternative. Let me just ask this question here. I'm sorry, and you have to forgive me. I'm waiting for the caffeine to kick in. Is there anything anywhere else that talks about accreditation other than this goal, schools accredited? No. So in other words, when I think about this particular goal here, I'm not necessarily saying that it's not for the internal just school student focus, but it's an outcome. And it's an important outcome because it's an outcome that the average person, whether or not they have children in Norfolk Public Schools or not, will assess the quality, assess the performance of what our students are doing. And so when we say fully accredited, which our colleagues in Hampton, I've been around some of my colleagues, school board members, they love to say it, we're 100% fully accredited. And there's a sense of pride with that. Norfolk Public Schools has been able to say that in the past, 100% fully accredited. I understand that the state's moving some things around, but I think it's important to our community to keep that as a forward thinking that everything else that we're doing, if we're doing it with fidelity, will lead to 100% accredited. And I think that also sends a message as we start looking at attendance, we start looking at individuals who will consider Norfolk Public Schools and consider moving their children back into public schools as another byproduct of that. So I'm not so much on the, I know you've worked hard with the administration to come here with a recommendation of how we can make this flow. I just don't know if I'm of the nature of, because we've talked, because I've said get rid of some stuff and we said no. If we said we're going to go with it, then I think we should do the same thing with this here. The state's changed some things, but I think that we as a board have said that accreditation is an important metric because of the community has said that it's important to them. And so I would recommend accepting the administration's recommendation on how we can make that adjustment with what the state has put in place for us and still allowing this to be a forward-thinking, outward goal as it is for the community because I think it speaks volumes for us that we're doing what we need to do.
Singh, and then Dr. Gabriel.
Well, I'll yield to Dr. Gabriel since she hasn't spoken yet.
No, go ahead.
No, go.
All right, so I like how you put that, Mr. Clanton, because that's, as I'm thinking about what Mr. Jordan had said and your presentation, Dr. Pohl, the language is changing from the state, which the language changes about every couple of years. And we just have to kind of adjust how we are putting forth basically the same data. Because you all are always tracking graduation, you're tracking math, you're tracking science, you're tracking history. I think for next year, when the standards go into full effect, the new language, the new 100% distinguished
Yes.
versus fully accredited,
Accredited.
that will be the new language. But to the parent, it is important for them to see that language, whether it's 100% accredited, 100% distinguished, because that's what they go to. They Google, and then they look, and that's the language that they interface with. And so I don't know that I'm ready to give a suggestion of take it away or, leave it, but absolutely, we have to continue monitoring the data because that is where the rubber meets the road on our student performance, which goes back to student outcomes. So I would say for right now, we kind of keep it as it is. But I think that the conversation with next year will be necessary as to if they want to, continue with this goal, change the verbiage in it. So those are my thoughts.
Okay.
Point of clarity. I just want to ask a quick point of clarity of, are you saying you're agreeing with me or you're disagreeing with me?
So you proposed two things, get rid of the goal.
First one was what I thought you were just saying, leave it alone, but continue to monitor or have the goal associated with the data as we know it. And then the second thing I said was delete it. So I was just trying to, when you say let it stay,
I say just let it stay for right now.
okay, which to me aligns with my first option.
Well, how I interpreted what you said was call it NPS board accreditation.
Accreditation.
Only because the state doesn't use the term. So if what we're communicating to the public and representing what the public is interested in, then when I hear you say continue to use a terminology that is aligned with what we've been doing, that was what I was trying to get to with my first recommendation without confusing it with whatever the state verbiage may be.
Okay, so with that in mind, I appreciate that clarification. This year, we're in November right now, so when we are reporting out our school performance come June, the terms that will be used are the distinguished, the other things. So,
Correct.
right, I mean, I would say NPS accreditation, I'm fine with that. I don't know, Dr. Birdsong, you?
Yes,
were
I
gonna-
was just going to add that this is the language, just to be clear. Even though they're still working out some of the kinks with the system, this is the terminology that will be used. They're going to use distinguished, on track, needs intensive support, as opposed to fully accredited, accreditation denied, and those kinds of things. So I just wanted to make that really clear. Yeah.
I mean,
I would say we still keep it then.
Yeah.
I'm
so
fine.
was that the first recommendation?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
What was the name again, Mr. Jordan? I'm sorry, what did you call the first one again?
I just
You just
you
made
can call it X, but I just said NPS accreditation.
Okay.
Whatever term.
Okay.
Doesn't really matter.
But making it more in-house to us.
It would just be us measuring the same things that we have now,
Mm-hmm.
but using whatever verbiage that we wanted to use for it.
Got it, okay.
Ms. Basine?
So a couple things I want to point out. So just to argue, it's just for discussion purposes here. That is counterintuitive to what Mr. Clanton is arguing, that we should have the language that the community knows. The language that the community will know going forward is this distinguished on track. So the accreditation language will be different, although it's what they've known in the past. But going forward, we're throwing out so much terminology. The second thing I want to bring up is that this is a lot more than just terminology, because as you can see, we're at 65, well, that's our target, but we're currently at 61% accredited, whereas according to what Dr. Pohl has shared with us, we're at 37% on track. So if this was distinguished and on track, we would be at 37%. The numbers are very different. The calculations are very different. So just saying that this is a matter of terminology, I think, is not correct. So this is much deeper than that, which is why I'm suggesting that we take the time to have an understanding. And, to be frank, there's a change in language up here, but there really isn't a recommendation, because right now we don't have a percentage, we don't have what our current, it's not up, a real recommendation is not up there right now. And so either, we have that discussion about what that is, but I would really caution us in going forward for the next couple of years with language that is going to be changing out in the community and by the state. So that's why I was suggesting that we delete it, because we need the time to really understand this accountability system, number one, and be in line, if it's about communication, that our communication has to be in alignment with what the statewide communication is. Because I think it's too confusing. And right now, the third point I want to make is that while families know, yes, they look for accreditation, it does mask what is really happening in our schools. And that, to me, is why this new accountability system is in place. So for me, we get so focused on accreditation that we don't actually know how many students are reading on grade level. We don't know how many students are proficient in math. And to me, if we keep pushing out that accreditation is the most important thing, we are going to lose focus on whether our children can read, whether they can do math, whether they can write. And to me, that needs to be the focus of our goals and not just, accreditation. So that's why I am advocating for deleting it at this moment. And
So I appreciate my colleagues' comments. However, there's a saying, write the vision, make it plain. And I think that, write the vision, make it plain. That I think that making things overcomplicated for the outside individual, they often say, and I remember when I was when I first got here, that public education has more acronyms than the Department of Defense. And in many cases, that's what parents, the average parent here, they get intimidated by this overcomplication of things. That doesn't mean that we don't track things, because honestly, if we're tracking and doing what we're supposed to do and allowing the administration to do what they're supposed to do, all of these things that we have that build up, if they're not happening, I don't care what you try to say, masking, it's not going to show it, whether or not it's accredited or distinguished or whatever else. So if we're doing the work and we're still tracking it at another level, we still need to have something forward that makes it very clear if we're on track, we're not on track. And I know that the state, because let's be honest, we have a new administration, it'll probably be in another year. We'll have an opportunity to appoint new members of the Department of Education's board. We'll probably be looking at this again another 2-3 years. Okay, so how can we, I would challenge at our level, and I think that's where I agree with Mr. Jordan in the respect, if we do something on our level here at Norfolk that communicates out. And I'm not saying that I disagree about those other things. We need to be tracking the reading. We need to be tracking all those things. But I'm just saying we need to also look at the outside individual who doesn't get into all of that, who can look at it, because that's what they do. We know a person comes moving into the area, they're looking, okay, well, I want to move into this zip code, this neighborhood, what schools is my child going to? There are websites out there that have, and it puts it all out there. So I'm just trying to say, can we find a way to kind of meet the middle road? Because deleting this, to me, then is further masking because we're not tracking it.
I think that's So these are our focus areas. That's not to say that we're not tracking all these other things, because like, we can make that argument for CTE, we can make that argument for anything, saying that we're not doing X, Y, or Z because it's not up here, and that's not accurate. And you and I, we know that.
Yeah,
We've had that conversation many, many times, that there are lots of things that we're monitoring that aren't our primary focus. And so that's what this is. So I'm talking about not deleting it as if we're never monitoring. We're required to monitor whether we're distinguished, on track. That's our accountability system. But whether it's a focus of our goal or not, of our board goals, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm having discussion around.
And that's where I'm challenged. I feel like it still needs to be, because if we're doing all these other things, it's going to make that, and that's what we should be looking at, that we can't focus on every single thing. And we got to identify some key things. I know we talked about that in governance training, that will raise the tide and help us get there. So to me, I think the administration's taking time to come back and give us a way forward on this particular goal here, that will be we're at what percentage of our schools, then you're giving us a number. That's pretty clear. But it doesn't get into the other stuff that where we are monitoring and other things, reading, pass rates, all that stuff is being monitored on a monthly basis and a calendar that we take extensive time to put in there. It should roll up, and we will see it here. So I'm not going to be labored because I know we're on time, but I think that I like the recommendation, and even if we just wanted to call it something else, I could go with that. But I think that it gives us what we need. This particular goal isn't just internal. This is a goal that should be outward focused to the community to see where is Norfolk Public Schools. Are we moving in the right direction? Not saying pass rates and all those other things, because we're monitoring that as well, but it's a very easy goal that you can go to. Are we on track year to year?
Ms. Basine?
I appreciate that, and this is good dialogue. I do want to remind us all, so right now, knowing our school accreditation data is already outward-facing. Whether we put it on paper here or not, that's the first thing when you go to the school quality reports, that's the first thing you're going to see is what our accreditation standing is.
But is the board saying it's important?
The board can say it's important, but right now, I hear what you're saying, but we have to ask ourselves, why are we saying it's important? Right now, what I'm hearing a lot about, and correct me if I'm wrong, that we're saying that it is important because that's what the community expects to see us focus on. But in the meantime, what are we really focusing on in terms of student outcomes? Because right now, that accreditation isn't telling us, it's not showing a picture of, and again, this is our focus.
But I would challenge Ms. Basine, the community are the taxpayers, the community are the individuals, they're the customers. I mean, they're sending the children here, so yes, we need to, if the board takes it away, and we keep saying board goals, and we take it away as a board goal, then we are the representatives of the community, and we're saying that the community is telling us accreditation is important to them. Is there anybody around this table that's a school board member not heard anybody from the community tell us accreditation or whatever it is not important? We've all heard it.
Yeah. That's not the first thing I hear when
I mean,
is that for you?
I'm just saying, we've had the conversation about accreditation doesn't mean that every child is meeting their marks.
exactly, and that's where I think that we've gone in with the monitoring calendars and said, yes, now we got to dig down to make sure that, I just think that if we're doing the stuff at the baseline and those other things, it rolls up. Again, and not belaboring it, I think that the reason why we put this here was it showed us at a high level, if we're doing everything we're supposed to at the low level, it's going to roll up. And we can look at it and say, are we from year to year improving? And that the target was to get to what? 100%. So if we're doing what we're supposed to do at the lower, at the micro level inside, reading, attendance, all those things down there, and then at board level, what are we doing to put those resources? That's why I asked at the last work session. We were seeing that we've got a dramatic increase in the reading. So my request as a board level member was, okay, what can we do to support you? You came back and said, probably more tutors. So my mindset is when we get to the board, because guess what? I'm not in the schools. My job is to make sure that we advocate for the resources so that you can do what you all need to do. So that's just my thinking. I mean, I might be totally wrong, but that's what I'm thinking.
Mr. Jordan?
Yeah, so I feel like we had this conversation at each work session. And as Mr. Clanton was talking, I share where he's going, but I think where I get off is, so we have other goals like reading, for example. So the monitoring of the reading and the interim goals that we're looking at is focused on reading. Ultimately, like you said, all that stuff bubbles up. But I think when we have this conversation about it bubbling up, then we bubble everything up as though we no longer have separate individual goals. It all gets meshed together. So, like I say, I still support either deleting it or maintain it with still having the info inside. But the other thing I just wanted to share, as a parent who had children that went through the school system, and when we have graduation, and the students are celebrating their achievements in their graduation, nobody talks about is the school accredited or not. They talk about how each child has done, which we talked about in governor's training, right? Each child. Even in the accreditation system that exists, you know, you can have a large number of children not performing and still the school can be accredited, but it doesn't mean that each child is performing to the maximum level that I think we all would like each child to do. So I understand the conversation about valuing the input of the community and why we did this. That's why I think we've struggled with it for 4 years each time we talk about it. But if we are going to keep it, or even if we're going to modify it, the interim goals that are identified still have to lead towards reaching the goal itself. And I think what we end up doing is having a lot of conversations about adults. You know, I still argue that attendance is an adult issue, not a student issue. And so that's why I just think if we set it aside and let the new board come back and deal with it based upon the current data and information, let them have that option, but just to maintain continuity and focus right now, at least for the continuation of this school year, just keep going and monitoring that progress. And if the board wants to make changes, then let them make changes with the benefit of whatever at some point may get solidified with the state board system. Because like you said, it's not solidified now, and it's not going to be solidified next month. And then the moment you think it's solidified, it's going to change again. So why not just stick with some continuity until everybody's on the same page and not cause even more confusion, at least from the board's perspective. So that's it.
All right, so what I'm hearing, moving forward.
Don't hear anything.
I don't know, I'm just, Ms. Messina said
Have
we had a
this
good conversation.
Conversation again. And I'm glad we are having a conversation because we have two of our new board members with us this evening. So it's good that they're hearing this discussion as well. All right, so Dr. Pohl, Dr. Birdsong, is that it as far as, no, we have a,
So,
Just as a follow-up.
Madam Chair, just for clarity, what are we doing?
That's what
Yeah.
my.
okay.
Because
Please.
either if we're keeping this, then the board has to have a discussion. The goal belongs to the board.
Yes.
So the board has to have a discussion around what goes in the question marks and the X's. Or if the board is going to let it stand, then nothing really changes. Or if the board is going to delete it, then I would suspect sometime soon the board would delete it as a goal. But the board, in my opinion, needs to make a decision around what direction it's going to do, what direction it's going to take so that administration is clear on what to bring back the next time this goal comes up for discussion and consideration.
Okay, then I'll go around the table. Mr. Clanton?
With keeping the administration recommendation.
Mr. Jordan?
Which is to say distinguished on track.
Yeah.
On track, off track, and needs.
It's to change it. So it's not keeping it the same. I just want to be clear.
So wait a minute, your recommendation just to keep same terminology this year? And then give it to the new board?
Basically.
Okay. Then I'm good with that, because it ultimately, because we'll get some more information as we go throughout the year. So I'm just saying,
Absenteeism doesn't count toward accreditation in the new system, right?
It does.
Does.
no, it's still.
Yes, it
yeah.
does.
Why don't we, may I make a proposal? Why don't we just delete the first sentence? And we just have the 2024, 2025 data year. We'll create a new baseline for data as the new accountability system is
Is implemented.
No?
Not a SMART goal, but we're still, what?
No, I was just repeating what you were saying.
But we're still tracking the data, and you're still gonna come out with a breakdown of what it is. We just are not giving you a percentage at this point in time because
Creating a baseline.
you're creating your baseline based on the new standards.
In other words, you're saying option one, my option one.
Creating a new option, which is to not have it,
Gabriel?
just to have it as a statement, which is that
Drop the
So,
the second sentence of that, which is a third.
Dr. Birdsong, you are asking for clarity from the board because you have two highlighted areas here, question mark, and then percentage. Okay? So right now, we have new terminology that the division is going to be, and all divisions will be having to report out the information. The measures are different, as we have discussed, and therefore, our goal is different as well, because the measures are different. And so, I agree with Mr. Jordan when he says, let's just keep monitoring what we're monitoring right now. And as far as an offering to you, as far as the percentages of schools that will be, I don't think we can say that at this point in time. We're here in November. And so if we just want to take that sentence out of the goal, yes, it's not technically a SMART goal, but we're still keeping the measures, and we're saying that the 2024, 2025 data year will create a new baseline for data as the new accountability system is implemented. And then that gives the new board the ability to review the data and create a goal around this if they choose to do so. How does that sound to you, Dr. Bertram? Does that sound realistic? Does that sound?
Well, it does sound realistic, and I think it would be important for the board to move forward with the new terminology, just because I think that's critically important, because at the end of the day, that's how we're going to be measured. And so I certainly support this year being a baseline year, because we don't know what we don't know yet. And so it would be important for us to know, for the system to be finalized. And even while they're making changes every month, certainly we can continue to monitor our progress along the way. But I do think it's important to at least be able to create a baseline, because that's important. You have a new system, you have a new way of looking at things, so you're going to need a new baseline for that. Just like the board created a baseline when we, started with the old system with this new goal for this board. So that makes sense. That does make sense.
Okay. Did everyone hear what Dr. Gabriel's recommendation was?
We'll use the new terminology, and we will use this
Create
year's, the 25 school year as the
The
baseline.
baseline? Okay. Mr. Clanton?
I'm good.
I just,
No,
this is more
I thought we were
Buffalo.
going around. and
I am
that's-
going
Oh,
around,
okay.
yeah.
Oh.
Mr. Jordan?
Okay, so we know, where are we? So Mr. Clanton had a recommendation, I had mine, Dr. Gabriel has hers. Are you keep going, or what are you?
Well, this is the thing, because we have the administration's recommendation, right? And we have, which is number 2, to delete is a recommendation as well. Dr. Gabriel's recommendation is just for the 2024-25 data year, we'll create a baseline for data for the new accountability system, implementing using the terminology for the new system as recommended by Dr. Birdsong. So there's some consistencies. Those are the 3 I hear right now. Am I missing anything?
I would
Yeah.
like clarification on Mr. Jordan's, please. I think I heard you and then I didn't. Mr. Jordan, do you mind?
What I was originally recommending?
Recommending, what are
Okay.
you recommending?
So one was delete, that was one option.
Right?
Delete.
But the consistent option was accreditation under the current goal that we have, that's not shown on the screen, but under the current goal that we have, we say that the goal is to be 100% accredited by a certain period. All I was trying to say is the elements of the formula that determines accreditation, we can continue to monitor that input. So let's say at the end of the school year, whether or not, right now, we are at, the target for the end of this school year is,
Not up there.
oh, that's right, we haven't created a target yet.
That's right.
Well, let's just, whatever it was before, let's just say it's 70%. I'm just making that up. Then that would mean that the target would be that 70% of the schools, under the same formula and measures that we are using now, they gave us the 56.1% that we're at now, would be utilized to tell us at the end of the year how we're progressing. And then totally separate from that, you shaking your head, that's not what I'm saying?
No,
Oh, I know you don't
Sorry.
agree with it, but,
no, I'm following what you're saying, but.
so at the end of, so ultimately, whatever the board decides to do on the new system, that can still be monitored, that baseline data can still be achieved, and some determination can be made whether or not the board wants that as a goal with distinguished or on track or and on track or whatever it is that the board wants to do. I was just trying to simply say that right now, we had 66.7%, 57.1%, 61%, 56.1%. And at the end of this year, with that same information, it can be determined whether or not whatever makes 70%, 29 out of 41 schools were met based upon that formula. That's what I was trying to say.
I am a little bit.
It sounds like you want the former system of accrediting schools. You just want us to look at it
Just
based on the same indicators that we previously looked at and report out on those things as it relates to accreditation.
for this year, while all the other new factors are being considered for the upcoming year, while the baseline data is being collected for the upcoming year.
So what I'm hearing is just stay the course of what we're doing now until the baseline is created around the
New,
new system,
Or delete it.
Mrs. Moore
or
Buffalo.
or delete it.
okay.
Mrs. Moore Buffalo, may I go?
Yes, I just want to make sure I'm saying it correctly, what I just said.
I heard the same thing.
You heard the same thing? Okay. All right. Ms. Basine?
Respectfully, this conversation is why I'm suggesting deleting it. Because we can't have our shared understanding of what the former system and the current system is we're all over the place. We don't understand even what we're monitoring here, to be honest. And so I'm suggesting deleting it because I do agree with what Dr. Birdsong is saying and Dr. Gabriel is saying in terms of knowing, let's get into this accountability system and figure out where we are so that we know where we're going. Right now, we can't even have a conversation around what the accountability system is and how this goal should even be structured. That I don't agree with a goal that is not smart. I don't agree with having a goal that we don't understand. Therefore, I And I'm also not in support of, given this discussion that we're having, I'm not in support of saying, let's maintain what we're doing with the former system, because I don't think that we're disciplined enough to be able to follow, track, and monitor where we're going. So that's just my feeling around it. So my suggestion is to delete it. That is not going to stop, right, Dr. Birdsong? It's not going to keep the administration from doing what they're required to do, which is to still collect, to still monitor where we are with the new, and follow the standards of the new accountability system. So you're still going to move forward with that, even though it is not a written goal on paper, right? That's right.
We will still be monitoring math proficiency, reading proficiency, looking to see if our children are coming to school with chronic absenteeism. We're still going to be looking at those indicators.
Right.
The new system just provides points instead of the old system. So we're just going to be looking at the data in a different manner.
Different manner, right. So I think we should just get a handle on that before we dive into this. So I'm suggesting deleting this current goal. Dr. Martin?
So, Dr. Birdsong,
Yes, ma'am.
if we kept this goal, used next year's data as the baseline to create a SMART goal, would this be redundant to what you're already planning to do with the new system?
Repeat that one more time, please.
So if we kept this goal,
This goal as written.
goal one, and use this school year's data as the baseline to fill in those blanks, so goal one, making it a SMART goal, would that be redundant to what you will be doing under the new system?
So,
Well, I'm saying, you're, okay, I heard she was tracking it in a different way.
well, in terms of, deciding where school falls, in terms of, are they their own track or off track or accredited or not accredited? Because now, a school can be accredited now, and under this new system, it may be off track.
Yep.
So it would just be, again, I would just say it's important for us to move on. At some point, we've got to wrap our arms around this new system. Otherwise, we're going to keep going back and forth, and it's just a lot. So this is where we are right now. The state has put forth this new system.
Again.
We have to embrace it, whether we want to or not. I mean, this is the system. This is how they will be looking at schools. And so I think it's important for us to move forward.
Okay.
It is important for us
That's
to
why
move
I'm
forward.
asking, because I don't think that you need to be reporting data out in two different ways moving forward. So I would say delete it.
Can I just point one other thing out? If can you just scroll so what the board is actually monitoring, the accreditation is the end of the year, how we performed at the end of the cycle. What the board is actually monitoring right now on some periodic basis towards whether or not we are likely to achieve that goal right now is chronic absenteeism rates and dropout rates. So it doesn't matter, as of right now, based upon the goal that we have, that's what we're monitoring. And at the end of the year, or at the end of the cycle, we're saying, what percentage of the schools meet the accreditation standards, which is beyond just those two things that we're monitoring. So I don't want us to get too confused, at least even more confused, like we are monitoring the end of the cycle accreditation indicator or the whatever distinguisher is being used. What the board is really going to be monitoring between now and the end of the cycle right now is how we're doing dropout rates quarterly and how we're doing chronic absenteeism quarterly. That's really what the administration will be coming and presenting on.
They're doing it already.
Yes.
And to Mr. Jordan's point, we previously shared that We do believe that these two areas are very important and critical for the board to monitor. But in addition to that, the other goals speak to some academic areas. They speak to the math proficiency, they speak to reading proficiency, which, those things are critically important. And at the end of the day, with the old system, your school was accredited or not based upon meeting certain benchmarks. So it's not that we were only thinking that if your dropout rates were appropriate and if the children were coming to school, that you were automatically accredited. Those other areas are important as well. And we just wanted to give the board a full opportunity to look at all the indicators. And this was, an area that we had an opportunity to do that, because at the end of the day, if the children are not in school, they're not learning. And as you can see, even with the new system, chronic absenteeism, children coming to school, not dropping out, it is an important part of the new system, which we need to continue to monitor. And because you have monitored it, we have done exceptionally well, or we're improving. So that's a good thing.
Okay, so I hear Dr. Martin, I hear Ms. Basine. They would like to delete it. Am I have you.
Go with the new system.
And go with the
Yeah.
new system. I got you, Ms. Basine?
So delete and keep,
Delete it,
is that what
yes.
you're saying,
Delete, okay.
Dr. Martin?
But I'm not
Delete and keep,
saying,
or,
I'm,
okay, yeah.
I'm not, I think we, as a new governance team, need to come together and do the work of really figuring out what the student outcome goal is going to be based on the new system and new data that comes throughout at the end of this school year.
I think that's what
Yeah, I feel like we're saying the same
Dr.
thing.
Martin is saying. I think she's
I'm
saying
not, but I, for the rest of this year, don't want to see this goal.
Okay.
Fully delete.
And I don't want to have this conversation.
I agree, because
Fixing the school.
just looking at the framework, the performance categories, the weighting of the framework, and how it different, elementary, middle, it is,
So different.
it's a lot. So, Mr. Jordan, I hear 3 deletes right now.
Well, that was one of the
Okay,
options
so
that I
are you
offered.
for?
It's 4.
No, keep what we have up here.
Okay. So, and I know Mr. Clanton would like to keep. So I have 4 deletes and 2 to keep. So, Dr. Birdsong.
Delete the goal.
And that's democracy.
All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, Dr. Birdsong, we're going to move on to 2.02, update on Campus Academy at Ruff.
Thank you, Chair Buffalo. We are very excited to bring forth this presentation to you this afternoon. We have Amber Brown, our new Chief Schools Officer, along with Tracy Flemings, our illustrious principal of the Ruffner School, who is excited about having the babies in her school and excited to share some updates regarding the program. So, Ms. Brown?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair Buffalo, Vice Chair Dr. Gabriel, members of the board, Dr. Birdsong, and of course, our community members. I'm Amber Brown, Chief Schools Officer, here with Principal Tracy Flemings, the proud principal of Ruffner School, for an update on our Ruffner Campus Academy to sharing some of our program's progress. Today, Ms. Flemings will highlight the elementary schedule, the WIN block for support, curriculum overview for each grade level, the capstone project planning, professional development, the application updates, which will be within the curriculum overview, community partnerships, and community highlights. Following the presentation, we will be available for questions and discussion. And at this time, of course, I'll turn the presentation over to Ms. Flemings.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Good afternoon, school board members, Dr. Birdsong. Thank you for having me to provide this update. What's going on with our school here? This slide outlines the daily schedule for grades 3 through 5, highlighting its uniqueness compared to other schools in the division. Key features include a WIN block. WIN stands for What I Need. It's a dedicated time for personalized student support, pathways exploration, We have daily opportunities for students to engage with middle school communities. Our subject allocation is broken down as follows. We have 1 hour each for ELA, math, science, social studies, ensuring a comprehensive coverage. We also have an integrated literacy instruction. During this time, we have small group literacy instruction, which is woven into social studies and science blocks. This approach supports a well-rounded educational experience tailored to student needs. The WIN block is designed to provide targeted daily support for individual student needs, focusing on literacy and math tutoring through programs like Lexia, Ignite, Zern, and Edmentum. This dedicated time allows teachers to work closely with students in small groups or one-on-one settings, fostering both acceleration and enrichment opportunities. This intervention aligns with the MPS strategic plan and the board's goals 2 for early literacy, 3 for students in the Black subgroup reading performance, and goal 4 for closing gaps. The intervention period also aligns with the school improvement grant application by supporting the implementation of identified evidence-based interventions in reading and math. By addressing individual needs, we aim to enhance students' reading and mathematics skills to meet or exceed grade-level expectations and improve their performance on growth and end-of-year assessments. During the daily Pathways exploration time, students engage in a structured career exploration process. This includes awareness for our grade 3 students, and this is introducing students to various career options. So they're hearing. Grade 4 is more seeing, that is observation, so they're being provided with opportunities to see potential careers in action. And then doing is happening at grade 5, where they are experiencing different things. So it's allowing students to actively participate in career-related activities. This staged approach helps students understand and connect with future career possibilities. In grade 3, the Pathways Exploration class serves as the initial introduction to academic and career planning. Key components include self-reflection, where students assess their interests, their skills, and abilities. Career exploration, which is when the students are introduced to the 16 career clusters, helping students identify potential paths. They also will have a culminating event where students will showcase their learning through a project focused on a selected career. The grade 3 curriculum lays the groundwork for students to begin thinking of career choices and lays a groundwork for their time at Compass Academy and beyond. In grade 4, students will further their career exploration in academic and career planning. Through career interest surveys, career exploration, and creating an exploration portfolio, students will begin to see themselves in any career they choose. One key activity includes hearing from professionals across various career fields, providing real-world insights into different occupations. This experience enhances students' understanding of career options and helps them to make informed decisions about their future pathways. In grade 5, students will concentrate on selecting a community pathway for grade 6. Key components include pathway selection. Students engage in academic and career planning to choose their future direction. Focus courses. Each student will take a 9-week course related to each academic pathway. And experiential learning, which are opportunities for job shadowing and visiting job sites to gain hands-on experience in various careers. This program supports deeper career exploration and prepares students to select their pathway or academic community for grades 6 through 8. As students transition to middle school, they have the opportunity to take courses that align with their chosen career pathways. This alignment helps them build relevant skills and knowledge, further supporting their academic and career planning as they prepare for future opportunities. In addition to in-class offerings, we are providing after-school enrichment programs through our Equity and Excellence Learning Center. These programs are designed to further engage students in their chosen pathways, allowing them to explore their interests in a supportive environment. In the engineering and science academic community, students have the unique opportunity to engage in a robust curriculum that combines core academic classes with specialized electives in engineering and science. This program allows students to deepen their understanding of these fields while fostering critical thinking and problem-solving skills. By participating in community electives, students can explore various engineering and science courses that complement their core studies, providing a well-rounded educational experience. This approach not only enhances their academic journey, but also prepares them for future opportunities in STEM disciplines. The Fine and Performing Arts community currently boasts the highest membership among our academic programs. This vibrant community offers students the chance to immerse themselves in multiple courses across various artistic mediums, including dance, visual arts, music performance, media television production, music technology, and theater. By allowing students to explore and develop their talents in different areas simultaneously, we foster a rich environment of creativity and collaboration. This multidisciplinary approach not only enhances their artistic skills, but also promotes critical thinking, teamwork, and self-expression. We are proud of the enthusiasm and engagement within this community and are committed to supporting our students in their artistic endeavors. The technology academic community provides students with valuable elective opportunities focused on information technology and computer sciences each year. Currently, we offer an after-school enrichment program in coding and robotics through our Equity and Excellence Learning Center, enabling students to enhance their technical skills and foster a passion for programming. Additionally, we are proud to support our young inventors through the Invention Convention program. This educational initiative teaches students essential skills in problem identification, problem solving, entrepreneurship, and creativity. By participating, students build confidence in their ability to innovate and create, preparing them for future challenges in technology and entrepreneurship. The Leadership and Service Academy community offers students a comprehensive pathway to develop their leadership skills as they progress through their education. This community provides opportunities to engage in multiple leadership courses, guiding students from foundational concepts of leadership to active roles as leaders in their school and community. Through programs such as the Student Council Association, National Junior Honor Society, and the After School Leaders of Tomorrow initiative, students gain valuable insights into effective leadership and service-oriented careers. These experiences not only empower students to make a positive impact, but also cultivate essential skills such as teamwork, communication, and civic responsibility. All pathways at the middle school level include increased opportunities for students to take high school credit-bearing classes, which supports Board Goal 5 to increase the percentage of advanced studies diplomas. The 2025-2026 school year will serve as a culmination of program rollout. Through their capstone projects, students will bring their ideas to fruition, embodying the skills and competencies outlined in the MPS strategic plan as 8th grade students who will apply their knowledge and skills to solve real-world problems within their academic communities. This will not only necessitate them applying their academic capabilities across multiple contexts, but they will also have to demonstrate to the school community their effectiveness as communicators via their school presentations. We continue to provide comprehensive professional development for our faculty to strengthen ongoing programs and effectively launch new academic programs at Ruffner as students progress through them. Elementary teachers receive targeted support to implement the components of the Grade 3 schedule, ensuring a smooth transition for our younger students, my littles. Meanwhile, secondary teachers were equipped with the necessary tools and strategies for teaching new courses and integrating the career pathways into the core curriculum. This professional development was designed to enhance instructional practices and ensure that all educators are prepared to support student learning and growth. This included professional development for teachers on the reading and math support blocks. These offerings are structured and aligned with the Tier 1 evidence-based interventions of the School Improvement Grant application that are aligned with the learning needs of students based on the comprehensive needs assessment conducted at the division level. The school level needs assessment aligned with those identified at the district office. We are committed to providing ongoing professional development for our faculty each quarter, tailored to meet the evolving needs of our teachers and students. This responsive approach ensures that professional learning is aligned with teacher requests, observed needs in the classroom, and insights drawn from student achievement data. By focusing on these areas, our goal is to enhance instructional effectiveness and support educators in delivering high-quality learning experiences within the specialty program model. We are continuously building community partnerships to support and align with our academic communities. Through our Equity and Excellence Learning Center and Title I, we are also developing ways to have parents to partner in program efforts to include attending and participating in an engineering and science field trip to the Chrysler Museum to learn and apply the elements of glass blowing, and demonstrating financial leadership via our Goal Setters program of our Leadership and Service Pathway beginning in January. Here's what our students are saying. Xavier said, "I like it. We learn to lead other people in the right way and ask them to do the right things." Avery told me, "When you're a leader, you learn how to talk to people and learn the right words to say. I also have to remember to count myself as a leader." Desire said that we learn to be a leader and not a follower. If someone is roaming the halls, you go to class by yourself and mind your business. We do projects on how to be kind to people and lead people to success. And finally, Josiah told me, "The thing that I like about leadership class is my teacher. He's never disrespectful, and he teaches us how to be a leader. We learn what to do and what not to do. Say, if there's a person messing with me, I should leave them alone without arguing or fighting. Just because someone else does something bad, it doesn't mean that I have to do it too." Over the past 2 summers, students from our engineering and science academic community have had the opportunity to apply for the prestigious ODU Summer STEM Institute. This competitive, application-based program requires students to submit a series of essays and an academic transcript for consideration. We are proud to share that each summer, we've had 2 of our students from Ruffner to successfully be accepted and participate in this enriching 1-week residential program. And thanks to the generosity of ODU in offering a discounted tuition rate, we were able to support our students accepting their, being able to attend and participate in this valuable experience. As one student noted, Jamira, "I liked it. I was in a space with like-minded people. In one of our projects, we got the chance to grow bacteria and check the pH. We are also proud of our partnership with Nauticus and Sail Nauticus Academy. Our participating students are learning not only about sailing, but the maritime industry in our area, which in turn may spark their interest in learning more deeply about these careers and potentially look to explore them as they continue their academic journey. Students are enjoying the experience and are working to encourage their peers to join. One student said, Sail Nauticus teaches us how to sail a boat, and we also swim. If students want to learn to sail, they're welcome to join us. Eastern Virginia Medical School has also been a community partner for the past 2 years. Through their Teach BP program, our students are not only learning from current medical school students, but they're also becoming the voices and ambassadors for the importance of blood pressure monitoring and good health in their homes and communities. As our student Delilah notes, you can save people's lives just by taking blood pressure. I liked we got to meet different doctors, get to know them, and learn from them. Compass Academy at Ruffner is dedicated to supporting all high school and career and technical education pathways. Our primary goal is for every student to apply to and successfully enter one of the specialty programs or CTE credentialing programs available at our high schools and technical center. We aim for all students to enter high school with at least one high school credit and reading skills at or above grade level, as well as possessing the foundational skills necessary to pursue advanced mathematics. Most importantly, we want our students to begin ninth grade with a clear understanding of what their future paths, whether that involves a career in industry, military service, or post-secondary education before entering the workforce. We are committed to equipping our students with the knowledge and skills they need to thrive in their chosen pathways, and we appreciate your support in helping us achieve these ambitious goals. Metrics to determine success will be connected to the number of students completing high school credit courses, the number of students being accepted to specialty programs across the division, and the overall academic performance of Ruffner as a whole. Thank you for the opportunity to provide this update on Compass Academy at Ruffner.
Excellent. Board members, you have heard the presentation. Are there any questions? Oh, Dr. Gabriel?
I really don't have a question. I'm just thrilled that, that you all are incorporating so many community programs within the school, and you're allowing the students to have such wonderful opportunities with EVMS and Sail Nauticus and ODU, and just the possibilities for them and the exposure is priceless, and you never know what they're going to take away from those experiences or what tiny seed might be planted from that exposure. And it's just a unique opportunity for them, and I applaud you all for, number one, making those connections with those community partners and having the students do that. What are you hearing from the parents?
What am I hearing from them? So actually, working with Dr. Clark with the Equity and Excellence Learning Center, they're calling around a lot of our parents. They're helping to help us get them engaged. And there was a parent, he talked about the Leaders of Tomorrow's program, and she just went on and on about how she said that program is changing her child's life. And so I thought that that was, you know, and we get a lot from our parents that have engaged with us, that they are very happy that their kids have something to do that takes them through, you know, all the way through school really late, but also they hear at home where they're starting to talk about different things. We talked about Delilah, she harassed me. I need to take your blood pressure. Are you okay? You know, so I'm sure I can imagine what she's like, you know. Yeah, right. And so, you know, she's like, can we have a health fair? And so we're looking at possibly doing something, you know, in the spring with them being able to demonstrate that they do know how to take accurate pressures and provide you with the information about what they're learning. And so the kids are great. And that's the thing with our kids. The more they're exposed to new things, you know, just their whole level of engagement and their excitement about coming to school, you know, and doing their best. You know, they still will have challenges because they're kids, you know, but I love seeing their faces across the board 3 through 8. So it's just great.
Well, I hear great things about the Leaders of Tomorrow program after school. I got to get back and visit. I'm hearing great things about that.
And we're having our specialty program night tomorrow for the community, so you all are welcome to come at 5:30 at the school, 5:30 to 7. And so we'll be there, students will be showcasing some of their talents and talking to parents and those who are interested in applying to the specialty program, letting the kids vote and, voice be heard, and not just the adults, so the parents can
Right.
see, and hear from the kids as well.
So Mrs. Flemings, can you make sure Ms. Tanner gets that information and get by there? Ms. Basine?
Yeah, I have a couple, thank you, first of all, thank you for the presentation, and I enjoyed my visit recently at Ruffner. I have a question about, if you could speak to a little more, and you just started to touch on it, the alignment with this community school model. And, because I know you touched on the community partnerships, but if you could talk about the family engagement, like what you're doing, and the other pillars of that EELC model that is described here, if you could talk about how that's being integrated into this.
So, with like the family engagement piece, so we're working closely with my family engagement specialist and also with our Title I funding to create opportunities for parents to engage in activities that are helpful and supportive for kids. There's a whole big push that we're trying to have with social emotional learning and helping parents to understand just simply about some, brain development and how smart is something that their kids become. The brain is a muscle, working them out. And so having a book study with a group of parents with that book mindset, and also having parents, there's an aligned app with that where parents can work with their kids at home, working through some projects with their children. So supporting the parents as they're doing that with their kids, teaching them how to use the app, teaching them, the conversations. I think it's a really great opportunity for them, along with integrating opportunities for like our goal setter program, which is a financial literacy program that has an app, but there has a parent education component to it. Well, the parents will come into the school and receive professional development or seminars on financial literacy, so that they can, work with kids about budgeting. And, it's almost like I had an app once with my kids. You can set them up with a debit card, set chores, set goals, and this is what we want to do, and also look at investment management and stuff. And then also, we talk about community partners. We have some community partners who are willing to come in, like if you wanted information on good nutrition, so we can have families to come in to what we're calling our Parent Resource Center, Room 103 in the school. We're developing as our old home ec room, where we are running after school a home ec class with some of the kids, but they can come in and receive that type of support and training. And just trying to work with like the housing authority when we talk about chronic absenteeism in kids. Like, we go looking for our kids, especially if we know that, we saw them last week, but we haven't seen them, and sometimes you walk into situations where you now know that additional wraparound supports are needed. And so having to get those in place, so it's a lot. So I don't know if that addresses all your question or not. But,
Yes,
okay.
yeah. Thank you for that. And I have one more question, which is more a logistical question. So you talked about, your specialty night tomorrow night. So I was wondering if we could hear a little more about what the specialty program piece entails. Is this, like, what are we doing? Are we opening it up citywide? Can you speak to that?
Sure. The applications are open, right now. They just have to complete the application, show an interest to attend. It's open online. And so we did have a district-wide, specialty program night for all of the specialty programs for the division. And so this is our individual school program. So our parents that we spoke to there, we told them, come out, you'll be able to learn more about our program specifically and hear from the kids. Bring your kids and let them talk to our children about, what is it like to be in dance class, or what is it like to study in the biotechnology class if they have a science interest. So, does that answer?
Well, I guess what I'm asking is this program open to any student in our school division?
Yes.
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
I just,
Mr. Jordan?
yeah, thank you also for the presentation. I love all the exploration opportunities. But I just want to ask a follow-up to what Ms. Basine was just asking. Can you just re-describe for me, so how the school comprehensive school program works and I guess the academy school within the school, if I'm saying it right. So do all the third, fourth, and fifth graders do everything that you had for third, fourth, and fifth grade, and then when they get to middle school, they choose an academy, and then each student chooses an academy? Is that how that works?
Yeah, so at the end of their fifth grade year, after they've gone through that sequence, they pick the pathway that they feel is their interest they want to study on.
Okay.
And so it's really integrated across, like it's not, over here we have technology, over here. It's within their content classes. That's the PD that the teachers are getting. They're integrating those pathway components like in the core curriculum. But what's unique is that your electives, if you are in the leadership pathway, will be different than mine, let's say if I'm in the technology pathway. And so that's how that's different. But they still have access to the same general curriculum, the same honors classes, PE, the foreign language, all of that. There's no differentiation. It's really those pathway-specific electives that have been designed specifically for the school.
So just like I can say, so third, fourth, and fifth grade, everybody's doing the same thing or getting exposed to the same thing.
Different ways, yep.
Different ways. And then in the middle school component, that's when they get to elect the pathways, and it's the middle school component that the parents outside of their attendance zone get to opt into. Is that correct? Or they get to opt in at
They
any
can
point?
opt in grade 3, so a rising, someone who's in second grade, and then also fifth grade.
You
So
can-
rising 6.
Right, so you can opt into
Third grade.
third grade, and you can opt into sixth grade.
Right.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, all right.
Is there any other question? Mr. Clanton?
Yeah, Mr. Jordan actually answered one of them there, because I was looking at, so Principal Fleming's, what's your student population? Just average right now, the number of students?
532.
Right. And, because I was looking at the number of students that are actually in each one of the different pathway programs. Of course, and I think you answered it for me when you were, your 3 grade, well, I guess second grade on up, they wouldn't be considered in one of those, third grade and up, wouldn't be considered in one of these, like your 59 engineering, 140.
Right, those are middle schools.
Those are the middle school,
Mhm.
got
So
it.
those are actually only just 6th and 7th graders.
Those are just 6th and 7th
Those
grade,
are the-
because
yep,
this is what year, this program is?
Year 2.
Year 2, so we're phasing it in each year. Okay, got it. So just, I guess for me here, I'm happy, I support programs like this that really allow students opportunity, exposure early. I guess just for general for us here, you've given us a lot of information. What would you say is a bright spot? And adversely, what would you say is a challenge that you're having with this particular program or implementation? I know everything's great,
No,
but in
no.
reality.
I think a bright spot specifically is the increased level of student engagement.
Okay.
Really. That is truly what I would honestly say. As with all programmatic rollouts, I think the struggle will continue to be staffing as we fully roll out the program for some of the specialized electives, just because of the rarity and how hard it is to identify those candidates. I think that would be the next big challenge.
Thank you.
All right.
Ms. Basine?
Could I ask a follow-up to Mr. Clanton's question? So, in your response, I guess so around staffing as being a big challenge, are you finding that the stipends associated with the EELCs are, I mean, it's too early to say whether, how effective they are, but does that seem to be,
I think that with some of my recruiting over the summer and whatnot it was definitely a draw to get people to okay, let's really engage, in this interview, and let's hear about this program, and helping people to really see, okay, where do you fit, or where do you see see yourself fitting, getting them to kind of commit. But it definitely was a cookie or an incentive for people to have a real-time conversation with you. Now, when they received them, it was like Christmas time. Recently, they were just so happy, and so that was great. It really was. I think it was very, very helpful with that staffing piece for us.
I've got to follow, and I don't want to believe it, I know we're running out of time. I'm just thinking about the staffing component of it. Are these, so when you say specialized, so let me just say engineering. So someone who has an engineering degree background,
So it'd be a tech ed.
technology education, okay?
Endorsement, and those are very, very hard to find. The IT side with the business education, really easy, and so we are still working to staff that position with technology education. So we're getting a lot of support from the central office with our staff member that we have who's teaching those courses to the kids right now. So they've been very great.
So with the 59 students that are in engineering, is that one teacher that's going to see those students at a certain period there? And I guess the further connection, these specialized programs, are they working with the science, the English, the math, your core instruction that's taking place in developing and supporting lesson plans? I know we kind of talked about some other things, but is that occurring in your program?
So it occurs, my program coordinator does a lot of that interconnectedness with that, but the teachers have received training. We're starting them first with choice boards, and CNI came in to give them training on that, so that at the end of the semester, students will be given a choice board within each of their core academic areas, and those have been identified so that if you're in math, these are your choices for your project. If you're in technology, if you're in fine and performing arts, and so the kids get to pick what project they want to work on in math class, and it'll be the same in English, social studies, and science. So that's how the teachers are starting to,
That's the first time I've heard that term, and I think it's kind of cool, choice boards.
Choice boards.
So we're giving students the choice to kind of,
so they'll do it with enthusiasm and rigor.
well, that's what I'm alluding to, because oftentimes I hear it in the respect that students are unmotivated. And if you're giving them choice, it kind of means they need, so I know we got a lot, I'll be quiet. The lack of sleep there with me.
All right, any other questions, comments? All right, well, thank you, Ms. Flynn.
Thank you all. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Okay, let's move on along. 2.03, Dr. Birdsong?
2.03.
Yes,
Okay.
equity report.
All right, so annually, as you know, aligned with the school board's equity policy, we provide to the board an update as it relates to the data related to our equity report. And so Dr. Pohl will start us out with pertinent data, and then we have our new, well, she's not new anymore, and I don't even like her to call herself new. Jerry will come forward and present some additional data to support the equity report. So without further ado.
Thank you, Dr. Birdsong. Good afternoon again, Madam Chair, Ms. Buffalo, Vice Chair Dr. Gabriel, members of the board, and Dr. Birdsong. This afternoon, I'll be presenting information on the annual equity report related to the data, and then our Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Affairs, Ms. Smith, will follow up with pertinent information about what we're doing in the area of DEI. So this presentation will consist of an overview of the division-level data, the connection to the school-level reports, and finishing with an update from Ms. Smith. Starting with the enrollment data provided for the 3 years is from the fall state report, and it includes pre-kindergarten and post-grad. As seen on this slide, the enrollment has been declining over the past 3 years, while the racial breakdown has remained relatively consistent. The two areas that saw an increase in our demographics of over 1% were students with disabilities and students in the economically disadvantaged subgroups. This slide contains data on student attendance averages for 3 years. As seen in the data, attendance rates improved for all subgroups except for Asian from school year 2023 to school year 2024. As the student achievement data has been presented to the board for STAR, PALS, and SOL, since this is all last year's data in the report, the next few slides are an overview of what is included in the report. English reading SOL data is provided at all levels for the division report in regard to the SOL data from the annual pass rates reported by the BDOE. Since the SOL reports from the VDOE do not include gifted students as a group, this part of the data was locally calculated for our equity report. Over the past 3 years, there have been relatively minor movements in scores and gaps in regard to the reading SOL results. Mathematics SOL data is provided at all levels for the division report as well. Within the 3 years of data, the all students group grew by 8 points, while the students in the Black and economically disadvantaged subgroups grew by 11 points, showing the highest gains and starting to close some gaps. Science SOL data is provided at all levels as well, and while science scores have been seen increases for all subgroups except for students in the Asian subgroup over the past 3 years, students in the Black and economically disadvantaged subgroups saw the largest amount of growth over 3 years at 14 points. Our PALS data, which is now turned to VALS, so the report will change a little bit next year as we know, is provided for kindergarten and grade 1. Since grade 2 takes the STAR assessment, that's what's included instead of grade 2 PALS data. Again, over the 3 years, PALS data has seen a decline of students identified as needing reading support in kindergarten by nearly 5% for the all students group, with students in the Black subgroup seeing a decrease of 7.5%. 2 or more races seeing a decrease of nearly 20%, and students with disabilities nearly 9%, showing gaps closing with early literacy. For first grade, all students declined by 11.5%, with students in the Hispanic subgroup dropping 22%, 2 or more races decreasing by 12.8%, students with disabilities by 15.4%, and in the economically disadvantaged subgroup, we saw declines of 14.7%, so we're starting to see some gaps close. With STAR Mathematics data, it's included for grades 2 through 8, and although most grade levels showed minimal increases or declines in STAR Mathematics, as mentioned on the SOL Mathematics data slide, gaps have been decreasing at the state level data. And STAR Reading is included for grades 2 through 8, and similar to SOL scores, there have been minimal changes over the past 3 years. The report then goes on to monitor grade level promotion, and it's reported for all grade levels on the division report. This is reported by the number of students and the percentage of students in each group. Grade 9 continues to have the lowest promotion rate. However, there was a 1.3 percentage point improvement from school year 23 to school year 24. Additionally, there is an upward trend over the past 3 years with a growth of 21.4% for students in grade 9. While students in the Black subgroup grew by 24.6%, closing the gap by 3.2% over those 3 years. And the gap between students in the Black and White subgroups decreased from 25.6% to 13.5% over the 3-year period, a 12.1% improvement in that gap between our Black and White student subgroups. The next data set being reported in the annual report is discipline data. The numbers are the numbers of incidents, and the percentages are the percentages of that group that received the discipline. The report includes in-school and out-of-school suspensions, and the out-of-school suspensions are categorized by short and long term. Over the past 3 years, there have been slight movements towards meeting the division demographics with averages with students in ISS and short-term suspensions. However, the data show very slight movement away from the division averages with long-term suspensions. This slide has the overview of the annual budget details for operating and grant funds for the past 3 years. The fund includes textbook funds, but not capital improvement funds. And the final pieces of data relate to teacher data. The highly qualified data is from the IPAL state report, and the highly effective teacher data includes any teacher that is not on a plan for growth and performance improvement plan. The teacher experience data is reported in bands from 0 to 3 years, 4 to 10 years, 11 to 20 years, and 21 plus years of consecutive years of employment with Norfolk Public Schools. And the final piece of data relates to teacher retention, which is the percent of classroom and non-classroom teachers who remain employed through June 30th of the given year, which has seen increases over the past 3 years from 87.3% to 91%. The individual school reports are laid out identically to the division report with a side-by-side comparison of the division data and the school data to make comparisons easier to the reader. And the report is also bookmarked. If you hit the little flag on the left, it'll bookmark it for you to make it easier to jump from school to school. At this time, I'll turn the presentation over to Mrs. Smith to provide an update on work being done across the division to support equity and excellence for all. Ms. Smith?
All right. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Mrs. Buffalo, Vice Chair Dr. Gabriel, members of the board, and Dr. Birdsong. I'm Jerry Smith, and I am the Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion here in Norfolk. Oh, there we go. Sorry, wrong slide. All right. At the 2024 School Leadership Institute, Dr. Birdsong called on us as leaders to be equalizers, dedicated to fostering equity and excellence for all students, no matter what. The Department of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Affairs is committed to ensuring a level playing field for every student and family to provide equity and excellence for all. Our DEI office is focused on bridging gaps and providing equitable access. Some key priorities include diverse representation. We ensure that diverse voices are considered across multidisciplinary teams, from division-wide committees to equity and excellence learning centers task forces. Inclusive culture. Through cultural competence professional development and trauma-informed practices, we can create a culture of safety, collaboration, and belonging. Bridging opportunity gaps. We use data to close opportunity gaps, which are also known as our achievement gaps. We refer to them as opportunities, by expanding early interventions, providing rigorous programming, tutoring, also with scheduling priorities to include dedicated remediation time in our elementary schools. Empowerment and ownership. Equity and Excellence Learning Centers empower our students to discover their potential. While events like our Norview High's Hispanic Heritage Month program, which actually was initiated by students, which was very exciting, and another example, our Crossroads Latina Festival, aim to celebrate diversity. Accessibility and alignment. We connect with families through various platforms in over 40 languages. As you know, we have many languages here in Norfolk, to include tools like Bing and platforms such as our website, Blackboard, Facebook, and X. And we make sure to allocate resources equitably to meet community needs. Family and community engagement. We strategically partner with community organizations to maximize impact based on school needs. One example is our Parent Connection Partnership, which is focused on fostering collaborative partnerships within the community to support family engagement as well as empowerment. Recognition and celebrations. We celebrate our DEI successes through newsletters, social media, board reports, and promoting positive examples. We are also supporting DEI champions in each school by providing professional development that's focused on cultural competency to create broad and lasting impacts across our division. We have prioritized recognizing our amazing teachers for the work that they are doing and commitments they're making to students and families that we serve through opportunities like our Rockstar Awards. To continue to strengthen cultural competency, the Office of DEI, Communications, and Community Engagement is implementing a strategic training rollout for the 2024-2025 school year by providing monthly cultural competency professional development series that will develop knowledge in the VDOE cultural competency domains, which include self-reflection, pedagogy, learning environments, and community engagement. Participants recently completed what's called the IDI, Intercultural Developmental Inventory, which is a widely used, effective, cross-culturally valid assessment for building cultural competence that's designed to help support individual growth as well as school-based implementation and practices. And we also have our Cultural Competency Canvas course that's available. Multi-tiered systems of support is our framework supporting each student's academic, behavioral, as well as social emotional growth through equity and accountability. Some focus areas. Needs assessments. Throughout the month of October, Division-wide, we are doing a variety of needs assessments to include, to name a few, panorama surveys for our students, as well as our family engagement surveys. These have been conducted to support data-driven decision-making. For example, recent feedback obtained during a division-wide committee meeting highlighted the need for additional behavioral as well as some mental health supports in the preschool setting, leading to targeted support, conversation, mapping, and allocation considerations. SMARTY goals. Our comprehensive school support plans include SMART goals. And for the first time, we're excited to start to integrate SMARTY goals, which incorporate inclusion and equity. Inclusive practices. We prioritize inclusive language and an inclusive curriculum in order to provide more options, creating increased choice for our students, with a focus on equity-centered instruction practices related to scheduling, tutoring, for example, our all-in tutoring, professional development, and collaborative planning to best meet the needs of our students. Data-driven decisions. Regular data analysis informs equitable decision-making across departments. Collaboration is key. Collaboration among different departments, from Title I, just to name a few, curriculum and instruction, learning support, ESL, student wellness, allow us to identify root causes and address systemic barriers and align actions. Division-wide meetings and structures ensure that schools, students with the greatest needs receive the focused attention and support that they need. Trauma-informed practices. In schools with significant needs, like our Equity and Excellence Learning Centers, incorporating trauma-informed practices are a priority to foster safe, supportive spaces for students. We are also monitoring and focusing efforts to continuing to increase access to wraparound services while addressing barriers such as awareness, accessibility, transportation, in order to ensure that students and families can fully utilize the available resources. Collaboration and equity focus. Our DEI office collaborates widely, as I shared before, but we also partner with Norfolk City agencies to also division-wide and school-level support, working with different departments to include nutrition services, purchasing, human resources, and student support services. We are able to address disparities in accessibility and work together to build bridges to increase inclusivity. Family and community engagement. Through a needs assessment, like our family engagement survey and our climate surveys, and other initiatives such as parent workshops, including literacy training for parents and guardians, we are able to address family needs and align community partnerships based on school priorities to maximize impact. And lastly, inclusive communication. Clear, accessible communication is essential. We continue to use multiple platforms and languages to ensure that all of our families receive critical information, fostering two-way communication and strengthening school connections. Our expanded use of language services continue to improve access for a broader range of our families. These initiatives align with Norfolk Public Schools' strategic plan, our Big Rocks, policies, reports, to create a safe, supportive, and equitable learning environment for each and every student. Thank you. So at this time, we will open the floor for some discussion and questions.
Mrs. Buffalo had to step out for just a second. So board members, are there any questions? Mr. Jordan?
Maybe I have questions first on the portion that Dr. Pohl went over with the reports.
Okay.
I guess my opening comment is to the board. we have an equity policy. I think I bring this up each time we discuss the report. I feel like we either need to delete it or amend it so that the equity policy calls for a task force, and that task force is supposed to be working with the administration on these equity things, and then the task force is tasked with making an annual report. And so it's been, I think it was
2016.
Was it 2016? Yeah, I think it was 2016 when we first adopted it, and I think we may have, we started on the task force, but it's probably been 6 years at least, maybe 7, where the policy, what the policy calls for has actually been implemented, and at least as far as the task force is concerned. So I just feel like we need to either implement it or take it off the table, and I think that rests with the board to review and consider and take action on that. I don't think that's an administrative responsibility, other than the board clearly communicating that we want that policy implemented, or the board not wanting that, and then the board taking the action to correct it. But on the one of the attachments that we received is the annual equity report for Norfolk Public Schools. I think it's the division-wide report, the division-level equity report.
Yes, sir.
And so I don't really have a question. I just want to bring something to the board's attention and to your attention that I paid attention to. One of the things I paid attention to, when you look at the STAR reading performance for all students and for Black students for each grade level, I'm just reiterating, I know we're on a good path, and I know that the data is showing we're going to make progress in that area as students go from grade to grade as cohorts. But I'm going to still, in my view, bring some attention to what I feel is a sense of urgency. So in STAR reading, for all students, grade level 2, it's about 57% of our students are on grade level, if that's correct. Then grade 3, 58, grade 4, 64, grade 5, 55, grade 6, 50, grade 7, 53, and then it even drops to 42% for grade 8. So if we were to then see what grade 9, and then as students are entering into high school, and what our high schools then are being asked to support students towards graduation, on-time graduation, right now, somewhere between 40 to 60%, 65% of all students are arriving in 9th grade not on grade level. And so I think when we talk about this cohort pathway, that's something that the board should be paying attention to, and I know you all as an administration are paying attention to. If you do the same thing with Black students, which both of these fall align with board goals, so at grade 2, 47% on grade level. Grade 3, it jumps up to 59%. Grade 4, 53%. Grade 5, 53%. Grade 6, 39%. Grade 7, 36%. Grade 8, 31%. So close to 7 out of 10 of our African-American 8th graders are going into high school, at least, I shouldn't say it that way because it may not be that all of them are tested. I don't know if that's the case, but whatever the number of students are that are taking that test, 31% of our Black students are going into 9th grade not reading on grade level. And so I just think, as we were just having a conversation earlier about goals and what we're monitoring and what we stay focused on, to me, that is a significant number of students that we as adults need to find ways to support. And it's not an administration thing, it's not a blame thing, a fact based upon the data that we're looking at. And so when we have conversations about accreditation and who's on track from the state perspective, to me, that's the core of what I think. I didn't do math, I just chose reading. Where we've got to really drill down and make some leverage supports, as Mr. Clanton talks about, budget-wise, whatever it is. If we don't move that cohort, which is probably representative of, 50 to 55% of all students in the school division, all the other goals and measures that we're looking at are going to be challenged. And I bet if we looked at discipline and other things, I bet there's probably some connection between the number of students who are involved in disciplinary actions and what their reading level is as well. So I just wanted to put that out there for, we talk about equity and goals and monitoring and supports, that we don't lose sight of paying attention to that alignment.
And I guess my comment is too, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, so that says middle school. So what's going on at the middle school level that, you see elementary, and then it falls in middle school, and, what is going on at that age or grade levels?
Cell phones?
Cell phones? So.
And it's truly not an uncommon trend.
It's national.
Yeah, it's a national
It's
trend.
national.
Not to
It's
say it's
middle-
acceptable, but
Right,
it
right.
is a national trend.
Absolutely.
Middle school is
Not acceptable.
interesting.
A lot going on in middle school.
Middle school, yeah. Ms. Basine?
Yeah, sorry. Thank you for that, and I appreciate Mr. Jordan's comments. I was going to highlight that, but not only that subgroup, but also what's also very concerning is our students with disabilities and our ELL students, because those we have to put focus in those areas as well. And so when you talk about inclusive, inclusive engagement or inclusive communication, and including that in the SMARTY goals. So this is kind of spanning both presentations, but because that is an area that I believe as a board that we need to put great focus on, I want to hear more about what we are doing with our populations around making sure that the supports are in place, and not only just that we have the two-way communication, but we have real authentic engagement. And that's what I think, not just here, but school divisions often miss, because they think communication is engagement, and we know that's not true. So could you speak a little more to that, because that is certainly going to impact what we see here academically.
Yeah, and great point. Sorry. Student engagement is just one level, but in communication, the goal is two-way. And so doing that really through different forums where we can actually hear from parents. And so we've done a couple what we call stakeholder and community engagement sessions, which is really designed to provide information, but also provide an opportunity to hear the voice, so make a connection, not just receive information, but that two-way opportunity for dialogue, as well as conducting, we're going in some spaces door to door and connecting with families, interviewing, having dialogue with our families to really talk through what are your specific needs, not just what do we want to provide for you, but what do you need from us? So really having those personalized conversations.
And then if you could expand on that, and then when you receive that information, what does that follow-up look like to ensure that we are, we're not just listening, but we're acting on what we're hearing?
Right, and so sharing that information, building that in, because right now what we're doing, as I shared with you, is really the time for needs assessment. So what do we need? So collaboratively sitting together with multidisciplinary teams to have those conversations. This is the information we received, and how collectively are we hearing that from different lenses? So it's not just one, not coming from one space, it's coming from multiple individuals.
And if I can add to that too, Mr. Newman, our senior coordinator for world languages and ESL, has actually, they've been doing school-by-school presentations too on communications and on using the language group and on making sure, that not just the front office knows, but everybody who would be communicating knows what resources are out there and how to best communicate for that kind of a collaboration. So we've gone school level with that as well.
Okay. And a couple more questions related to that. So I touched on this earlier. Could you give an example of what a Smarty goal that you have in place
Yeah.
that integrates inclusion and equity, I believe you said?
Let's see. So, So really what Smarty goals are, it includes, considering others' input from the inclusive lens. Equity addresses unique needs to add disparities and to really talk through that. So one example of a goal. Oops, so sorry. All right. So one Smarty goal, by June 2025, collect comprehensive baseline information on school leaders through cultural competence, academic performance, attendance, and discipline. This data will be gathered through surveys and data analysis of attendance and performance data. The baseline information will serve as a benchmark to evaluate the success of this initiative to increase inclusivity and improve outcomes for all students, especially those from underrepresented backgrounds.
Thank you. So that kind of connects to another question I had is how is that being measured and what tools are we collecting, as a division to get that standard information?
So as we're starting the implementation, that's where we're growing. So really looking at our current SMART goals and how do we add the IE to it to make sure that we can go deeper into it. Because we do, all our CSSPs have SMART goals and how do we
Remind them of what that is, since the terminology changed.
So the
Is that the
specific,
SIG?
measurable, attainable, realistic, and time frame.
Oh, I'm talking about the support plans.
Oh, sorry.
See, that too. It's so many.
As you remember, we used to have CSIPs, but now we have CSPs. And it's the continuous school support plans that all of our schools do. And they have to have goals related to their academic performance as well as some SEL goals in there. And those are the ones this year we're working on. How do we look at the IE on that as well? And the example that was given here was like, we're looking at specific underrepresented areas, or what specific inclusivity group do we want to make sure that we have in that goal where we see either maybe larger gaps at that school. So that's where it would come, and it would still have that measurable part into it, Mr. Singh.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else, comments, questions? Dr. Gabriel?
Some thoughts that I have been pondering as we have been receiving all of the data that you have presented to us over the course of time. I'm going to dive a little bit into the students with disabilities. That is a very broad category. There are any student that we are discussing who has a disability has been identified as a student with a disability. They have been identified through a very specific means, educational testing. That identity, or those means of identification, point to some very specific categories. They can be medical, they can be learning, and so I think for me, at a board level, it's important to have that very broad understanding of this category. But I want everyone to understand, at least for me, this is a very, very deep category with a lot of variety within it. And I think that the expectations that we have for every child that is in that category is going to be different. So There are students with disabilities who have very severe disabilities, and they are still counted in our data, as they should be. But I think that expectations for those students, we have to be very realistic about what those expectations are. On the flip side, there are students who are very, very capable of meeting the standards based on some of their perhaps learning disabilities, decoding, dyslexia, those things. And so what I would like to have a better understanding of, and forgive me, Dr. Birdsong, if this might be going too deep, is do you all piece out of the students with learning disabilities, this percentage of students have a issue with dyslexia. We have on staff these amount of providers that have training on dyslexia, and these students are in a class with a provider, a teacher, or an instructor who has this amount of training. Are those the things that you all are looking at when you are trying to bridge the gap that we have with the students with disabilities? Because to me, that's where we want to see effectiveness in teaching for them. So I apologize for the long breakdown, but to me, this is a category that we have, it's a growing population that we have. It's a category that we are constantly discussing, and I feel like, where are you on those items?
That's a great question, Dr. Gabriel, and I know Dr. Walter probably perked up, and she's going to be, saying how my answer is, so if you need to interject, Dr. Walter, please do. Actually, yesterday, we just had an in-service for all of our building level administrators, and that was one of the points of topic, is the IEP development to support the child and the goal collection and data collection around the IEP and the child's needs, because they are vastly different. So as each individual IEP is written and there are goals made and accommodations made, absolutely, if there's a deficiency with dyslexia and there's an accommodation, then we make sure there's a staff member that can help with that. And if not, that's why, board-wise, budget-wise, we've asked a lot in contract services to be able to find the providers to offer those supports to students as needed. So on a student level, student by student, absolutely. That's where we do everything to match up the supports with the disability that's been identified and to match the accommodations to meet those needs as well. And now another large focus we have is on the data collection connected to the student goals. And we have in place software, it's called Rethink, where teachers put the data so that we can start monitoring that data even better and see what we're seeing on individual student goal growth in an online platform that can help put it together for us instead of having to go IEP to IEP and meeting note to meeting note. So absolutely, we do look very closely at the student needs, and we do monitor that, and we do ensure that students have the accommodations in place and the support to meet those accommodations.
And then, as an administration, if you feel like there is a need, as you did with the last budget cycle, we need more specialists or teachers who have certification in X type of instruction, you bring that forth to the board.
I've already started begging Dr. Birdsong.
Okay.
Beg? They never have to beg
We don't
for
have to
what our
beg.
kids need. Never have to beg.
We never have to beg. No, we don't.
Okay.
And
the
in
record.
fact, every time I've come with something, she's like, "Are you sure?" "Yes." "Okay."
I appreciate that.
And then it comes to the board. Right. It's not going to give me free everything, but, we can justify our needs. And every year, Dr. Walter spends her budget and then some of my budget, and I think some of SLT budget, and wherever we can pull in from where we need, which is why also mid-year, we did, the budget, so.
And I'm sure you recall that, especially over the last several years, there have been a lot of requests to support our children with disabilities, and the board has supported those requests, and so we certainly appreciate that.
Yes. And I know the training is extensive for those students, and I I thank all the teachers who have gone out to get additional training for that, and I thank MPS for providing the extra professional development. So,
Appreciate it.
Okay, anyone else? All right, thank you. Okay. Time now is 6:04. We have two policies, 3.01 and 3.02. Dr. Birdsong?
Yes, Chair Buffalo, tonight, or this evening, this afternoon, this evening, we have a couple of policies that we'd like to bring to your attention. The school wellness policy, on a triennial basis, Lisa Winter, who is a rock star, she's our senior director of child nutrition, school nutrition. She works closely with the Virginia Department of Education on reviewing our policy, making sure that it meets certain standards, and as a result of that review, we have some recommendations that we'd like to bring forth to the board. And then certainly, we want the opportunity this evening to discuss the personal electronic communications device or cell phone policy with the board. We have a proposal for you, and I know you probably have had an opportunity to review that. We would like to hear your feedback because, as you know, in accordance with Governor Youngkin's Executive Order number 33, we are mandated to roll out a new policy effective January 1, 2025, and we feel that we're prepared to do so, but certainly we need your input. So, Dr. Pohl.
You really, Dr. Birdsong, you hit the nail on the head with the wellness policy. Those are all recommendations made through the triennial review from the VDOE. So those are why those are being brought forward to the board. It is not a cycle policy with VSBA at this point, but these are recommended. As far as the personal electronic communication device with Executive Order 33, establishing cell phone-free education to promote the health and safety of Virginia's K through 12 students. The executive order was established since parents, public health professionals, educators, and other stakeholders across the Commonwealth are expressing concern over the alarming mental health crisis and chronic health conditions affecting adolescents, such as depression and anxiety, driven in part by extensive social media usage and widespread cell phone possession among children. Cell phone-free education will significantly reduce the amount of time students can be on phones without parental supervision. And studies, in fact, indicate that students who use their phones during class learn less and achieve lower grades. The issue extends beyond mere distraction, but substantial phone and social media use can have a culminating, lasting, and detrimental impact on adolescents' ability to focus and engage in their studies. Therefore, creating this policy or the cell phone-free education environment in public schools is not only a prudent measure, but an essential one to promote the healthier and more focused educational environment where every child is free to learn. And as you all are aware, this executive order mandates local school boards to adopt and implement cell phone-free policies by January 1, 2025, which is why we brought it to you guys in November, so we can have a second reading on it in December. And as a part of developing that policy, there was a stakeholder survey early on before the policy was fully developed, then a fireside chat where we conducted it with local parents. And I believe we're actually the only division on the south side who held the fireside chat. There was principal input and teacher input received as well. And then once the survey was posted to board docs in public view, a survey specific to the policy was sent to stakeholders to begin receiving feedback prior to the tentative board vote on December 18th. And part of the reasoning for this was to meet the board's 2-week deadline and upload data by the 21st of November. We wanted to make sure parents had more than 2 weeks on that survey. And if we would have waited till now, we wouldn't have had time to go through that data and post it for the board as well. So that is out and about already. So with that, we're ready to take any questions you may have on either policy.
Dr., I'm sorry, Ms. Basine.
Yeah. Thank you. Can you share regarding the cell phone policy, is the survey still open, or do we have information already collected back from that?
The one we just put out is still open, which is the one where we're asking for input on the actual policy.
Right. Okay.
There was a survey early in the fall, just around here's executive order, really raise awareness about it, to get input from parents on that. And that one closed. That one's
Yeah.
closed already.
Well, I guess I'm asking, 'cause is there like a summary report of what the key findings were as a result of that?
I don't have an official report, but I do have some summary. I absolutely have some summary of that. So we had about 1,550 responses total. We had about 300, a little over 300 comments with the community feedback, and 35% fully supported the ban. 25% supported it conditionally, wanting like students to be able to use it during lunch, or for safety concerns, wanting my child to have a phone, and 40% opposed the policy in total. Some of the key concerns were around safety, and just the need to have access to phones in emergency situations in the school. Some of the benefits of the ban were improved learning environment. The supporters really were talking about the benefits of reducing distractions. And then there was also, concerns about enforcement of the policy from some of our teachers, but we did talk about that at teacher forum as well. And they came up with some good suggestions for us too that we're going to put into place. And then there, some of the suggestions for modification, like I said, were like during hall changes or lunch to be able to use it. But the executive order is very clear from bell to bell. So when students walk in, cross the threshold of the door in the morning, the phones are away until the end of the day at high school at 2:05 when the bell rings. They can take that phone right out as soon as they want. But from all instructional time, including lunch and hall changes, no phones allowed. And then there were some concerns around technology use in education, that some teachers have, become accustomed to using phones in education as well. But again, the executive order was very clear that we had to follow.
Okay. And the teacher forums is the same?
So teacher
group
forum,
that
every year we do,
you
every
mean-
school has an
okay.
elected representative who comes in.
Okay.
And we spent, I think, about 45 minutes to an hour of our hour and a half together on the cell phone policy.
Okay. And the information that you've gathered, the concerns, and you talked about some of the great solutions that were suggested will be, integrated and shared in
So
what manner?
Something really simple that the teacher forum came up with was, one, having parents and students sign an acknowledgement of this is a new policy, I understand the policy, but even further than that is when a phone might get confiscated and the parent has to come pick it up. If they don't have one of those signed forms on file, the parent has to sign the form before they can get the phone back, saying that so we have acknowledgement of knowledge of the policy. Because we know a big hill to climb here, which why we started with the survey in the fall, is that communication to parents and making sure everybody has an understanding of it when it's in place January 1st, coming back after the break when some students may have a brand new phone.
Okay. And one more question. So, and related to those, and I know what the executive order says, but as it pertains to the policy, for those families, students, where they were relying on their personal devices as health monitoring tools, can you explain how the policy itself will help guide parents on, because I know some are looking for that information and they go to the policy to look for it. And
So it would actually, the policy would waive if the students have it in their IEP,
Okay.
or if they have it in their student wellness or health,
like the 504.
yeah, or 504. So like a common one is our students with diabetes. They use it for monitoring. They just need it in their 504 or their health monitoring form with the clinic, and then there's an understanding that they have a need for that phone for medical reasons. But if they're playing a game on all day, that's something different. But if they're using it for medical reasons, of course, that's
Of
fine.
course, right. Okay.
I have a question. Dr. Birdsong, do you or the administration consider the cell phone policy acknowledgement form part of the student handbook probably every year?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely.
And we'll actually do an amendment to the student handbook in January with the cell phone
On
policy
executive
information,
orders.
with the one that's online. And that'll be shared with parents, too.
Is there any other questions? Mr. Jordan?
For both policies, it has the Norfolk Public Schools Z designation.
Mhm.
What makes it Z for each
So-
policy?
So for each policy. So for the wellness policy, that was developed a few years ago, before my time. And there was a lot of conversation around that, I understand. And both, actually, Ms. Winters, myself, and Dr. Moore have all talked about when the VSBA one comes out next time, about seeing how can we thin this back down? Because it has a lot.
It's long.
Right.
It just has a lot.
Yeah.
We would do it with input and everything else of who did it. But that one, there's a lot, Mr. Jordan. And then the cell phone policy is Z because VSBA does not have a model policy for it right now. So it is, every division has to create their own policy right now, so that would be Z. And the XXs are just placeholders right now until we have where it fits in the policy document, in the policy manual.
So I'm not trying to go down the wellness policy thing. I just wanted to make sure that there was nothing new in there that was unique to us. On top, I knew why we had a Z. I just didn't know in the recommended changes,
I understand.
was there anything in there that was deepening the something unique to Norfolk Public Schools versus?
Yeah, those are all based on recommendations from the VDOE triennial review. When they looked at our policy as a part of that and said, these need to be a part of your policy.
And then for the personal electronic communication policy, the executive order guidance, at least as I recall it, said these were some minimum recommendations and guidance that local school divisions could consider and that you could be even more comprehensive. So in what's being put forward here, is this considered implementing the minimum, or is there something more comprehensive that's being recommended here beyond just assuring minimum alignment with the executive order?
This is really just in alignment with the executive order. Some of the things they put on localities was like, what about school buses? And we, without having aides on every single bus, having a driver trying to do that, we thought was unreasonable and unsafe. So this really follows the framework of this is what schools need to be doing to start with. And then, we figure we'll build from there as we move into it.
And then are there other policies then that were aligned with what we currently have that are also impacted by this recommendation that we should be reviewing and considering?
Yeah, so after this one, assuming it's going to pass the board, then we'll look at our BYOD policy because that talks about bringing your own device.
Right.
And how that would be either defunct now or reworded.
Then in my last comment, I guess it was a couple weeks ago, I was invited to speak to a group of students at Granby High School in one of their clubs. And in my conversation with them about what a school board member does, I brought up, well, who do you think sets these policies? And one of the ones that we talked about was the cell phone policy, and the students, obviously their eyes lit up and they had lots of thoughts. So can you describe the engagement with the student population in terms of what's being recommended here?
So when we engage with principals, most of our high school principals have engaged with their students. I don't know if, Dr. Cataldo, if you had specific student group meetings. We did have them on the surveys, and they were able to, on the initial survey, to give feedback on that. And then when we talked teacher forum, we talked about what students were saying in there as well, but nothing more direct.
I would like for the board to consider, maybe it's something we do, but trying to recommend that and we have our two student representatives to the board, but trying to make sure that the students are aware. I mean, adults going to make the decision, but I think the students, at least in my experience, come up with a lot of good creative ideas and voice from their own experiences. And so I would like to see some type of effort being made to make sure that the students are truly aware of what's being discussed and that their feedback is being sought and valued. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know how you do that, but maybe we text it to them, wink, during the school day. But whatever it is, yeah.
Good TikTok dance.
And maybe that's something that we can ask our student reps to work on. But I do think making sure that the students are aware what's happening and making sure that we value their voice, I think it aligns with the goals and the norms that the board established around student voice.
And I believe Dr. White is sending me smoke signals over there
Okay.
about doing a PSA as well, including students in that too.
Yeah.
So,
We're currently creating a PSA that will be going out. Alda will be featured in.
Yeah, well, I think that's great. I'm just recommending that we make sure it's targeted to the students and not just to the adults.
right.
I just keep wanting to say Dr. Basine. Ms.
Nope.
Basine?
Yes, so I do want to, what?
You're not talked to her yet.
I do want to go back to the wellness policy. So one of the things, so this policy was intentionally crafted to be comprehensive. And so some of the things that I noticed that seem to be strike through are things like the school health index. And one of the things that the purpose of that was to kind of align our school wellness practices with what we're finding are the needs of our students. And so I want to hear a little more about why you're recommending deleting that piece, even though I know it says no later than June. I understand not having a date in there, but deleting it as something that we would conduct. I want to hear a little more about why the recommendation is to remove that from the policy.
So when Ms. Winter and I talked about that, it was because those have been completed. The school health index were completed, and I believe they're a part of the triennial now.
Oh, okay.
So it was just, this was something that had been completed that hadn't been completed when the policy was put into place, which is why it was a dated item in the policy.
Right, right.
So the school health index is a part of that
It's
triennial.
part of the triennial. Okay, all right. Okay. That's helpful to know. And, yeah, I just think as we consider community school models where we're examining, the health needs also of our students, that having a policy as comprehensive as this, and this is something that's been, I know has been, I guess, other divisions have said that's a great policy that you have in place, that we don't consider reducing it, or, because I think we've been real intentional about what we're doing here.
I think a lot of the discussion we had around it was more of how can we organize it better so we see what, because when VSBA comes out with the legal updates or the requirements through VDOE, sometimes they get missed because they're hidden in here. So making sure that it's organized in a way where we can see the differences and not cutting out things that, because we know there was a lot of thought put into this policy. Clearly, there was a lot of thought put into this policy. So
yeah.
it's more of, some of these things I think in previous VSBA updates might have been a part of it, but it didn't make it to our policy because it's just so deep. And I don't think, it's, the VSBA part's not noted as well. So just organizing it better.
Okay, thank you.
Just-
Any other, Mr. Jordan?
Not so much a question. One, I just want to say with the wellness policy, just as with the equity policy, I know Ms. Basine and I joke about it all the time, that there's some things in here around fundraisers and what you're supposed to have and not have that don't seem to get implemented. So if we're not going to be doing sugary stuff and all this stuff, then I think we need to do a better job of communicating to the schools, the do's and the don'ts. And then my other general comment is just overall from a policy perspective, we were sending emails back and forth dealing with the Ghent Pathway Program. We've had out-of-district transfers for other programs that, from a board perspective, I didn't know that we even knew existed, but where we're granting out-of-district transfers, like with the Project Lead the Way classes at some high schools that don't exist at other high schools. And so I just think it's important that, one, we're we're clear on those policies. 2, we're clear what the board responsibility is around enrollment and establishing pathways versus what we have granted the administration to do without board guidance or so forth. So, because when I started receiving the calls about the Maury Pathway Program, it took me back to the Southside STEM Academy zoning, where the board decided one thing and somebody decided something different. And now, 10 years later, we still have this disconnect. And so my reading, and maybe the policy committee and the attorneys can look at it, but my reading of the policy, whatever it is, BBA, that deals with board responsibilities, that it's the board that determines enrollment, it's the board that determines attendance zones. And so if an individual staff person is making decisions around who gets enrolled, to me, that is not in alignment with the policy, and if I'm wrong, I need somebody to tell me. But I think those types of things need to be communicated, because there's so much turnover in the division that anybody can come in tomorrow and just not be aware of something, and we can unintentionally undo things and cause all kinds of disruption. Whereas if we're just clear that if you have the authority to do something, you have the authority to do it, then it's a matter of communicating that change. But if you don't have the authority to do it and it rests with the board, then the recommendation should be coming to the board to be able to act on. And just like we're doing with these policies, as our process has been, when we have controversial policies, we do readings and allow for public comment. So I just want to raise that again from a policy perspective, because I think at times, and no malintent anywhere, but I just think that we're not always clear on what rests with the board and what does not. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jordan, for that comment. Any other questions or comments? Well, thank you, Dr. Pohl.
Thank you guys very much. Have a good evening.
Board members, we have exhausted our agenda, and with no other business, this meeting is adjourned.